Nearly every second at the moment it's going up a degree, so it's going up really quickly. 130 degrees, you throw the oil away, it's done, it's cooked. Or 110 degrees, we haven't even got to the 5-minute mark. 120 degrees oil temp.
All right, so behind me we have our 25 model 300 series. We've had this car for around about a month and we've put about 1,000 kilometers on it. So today we're going to do more R&D, and the R&D we're going to do in this car is around our new products, and one of those new products is our sump. Now we have a larger capacity sump and also it's got extra cooling on it. So I want to really go through and give an understanding of the difference by putting one of our Just Autos sump on your car. We have a MoTeC in the car as well, also doing external logging, and that is to log the oil temperature and pressure. But first things first, before we get stuck in on the dyno, we're going to change to our 530 oil. Now this is a 530 oil we've been developing for some time. It's a 5W30 oil, that C2, C3 rating. It is 100% fully synthetic, but I'm not going to get too much detail about it. We do have a TSA that's going to be on our website, and we're going to give you a little bit more information about it with some other videos separate on the oil. So let's get this oil change done and we'll get started.
Matt will be running 4 tests. Test 1, dyno load test with the factory sump as a control. Test 2, dyno load test with Just Autos sump. Test 3, road tow test with Just Autos sump and cooling modifications. Test 4, road tow test with factory sump. Each test will be executed on different days to control temperatures and heat soak.
So we're in the car. We've been sitting here idling for a little bit now. Once we get to the 5-minute mark, then I'll start to roll into doing the load test. Now we are in a stock form here, so we're going to be running the car at maximum load at around that 28 PSI. That is where factory is. And that is with both turbos open. So we're sort of really simulating what it would be like to travel up a hill. We're going to be in that 7th gear and we're going to be loaded in that area, and we're going to be holding it there for around 5 minutes. So we're going to see a pretty big increase in coolant temperature. And we're also going to see that oil temperature start to rise, and we're really interested to see what that number gets to. And this is only at the moment of the day. I'd say the ambient temperature at the moment is probably, was it 25 degrees? So it's not real hot. So it's going to be really interesting to see. We're reaching on that 5-minute mark, so now we are going to get it up to speed. 2200 RPM, 100k, 7th gear, and we are full noise. We've actually only been going for a minute and we're up to 90 degrees already. We're producing around that 600 Newton meters, so that's what is sort of factory. That's the maximum power that you get in factory. We've just touched on 100 degrees. You gotta remember, 130 degrees, you pretty much throw the oil away, it's done, it's cooked. It offers no properties worth of protection for the engine. Nearly every second at the moment it's going up a degree, so it's going up really quickly. Okay, maybe 2 seconds. Every 2 seconds, another degree. Every 2 seconds, another degree. So it's gone up really quickly now. The coolant temperature is stabilized, so we're just over 100 degrees in coolant temp. It's stabilized. Oil temps are 107. We haven't even got to the 5-minute mark. We're at 8 minutes 53, and that's including the first 5 minutes of idling. We're 110 degrees. We'll stop the log there. 120 degrees oil temp, and that is running fairly mild form. Yes, we are in a load, but that is like pulling up a range. Obviously that was only a 5-minute run there, but looking at those temperatures, that's definitely getting warm.
We've got our data. We reached to around about 120 degrees and we're about 275 kPa of oil pressure at that point. That is a consistent of 2200 RPM the whole way under full load. So that was done for 5 minutes. So what we'll do now is we're going to fit the sump up. We're going to do some other R&D testing today. I don't want to do the same test that we did just on this with a stock sump. The reason for it is because the saturation of heat that's already through the car, we really need the car to be at the same starting point as we were to get a really good understanding. I believe if we did this test now, we're going to end up with a poor result of what the sump could provide, and obviously you're not starting with the right testing results. All right, so I thought we'll do a little intro into our sump. This sump here at the moment is our test sump. This is what we're going to be putting on the car today. The only real difference with this sump is the fact that we've got a a fitting tapped in here where it will be our temperature sensor to measure the temperature of the sump itself and the oil that's in it. So that's the only real difference there. Guys that actually made this sump is Harrop Engineering. Now, Harrop Engineering are in South Australia. They have a couple of facilities also in Melbourne. They're also in America. They make superchargers, that's what they're known for. We approached them to make this particular product and they've done an amazing job with it, so we're really happy. So something else we thought we would add to the sump is an oil fill cap. It tells you the fuel capacity of what now the engine is with the sump on it. So if your mechanics are servicing, they can see that, hey, it's an 8 litre volume to be able to in that car now. The next thing we add in the kit is also some of these spacers. The spacers are there for 2 reasons. The first reason is to space it down so we don't have the bash plate fouling on the larger capacity sump that we have there. The next thing is also it helps with airflow come over that bash plate, especially when you're at speed, and that air really does help pull that heat out of that sump, and overall it does a really good job at that. We thought it'd be a good idea also to put the fuel capacity again on the bottom of the sump, and also with the torque setting of the Newton meters for the sump plug. The sump plug that will come with this sump is a mild steel sump plug. It is the same size as factory, but it has a magnet in it to be able to pick up any of those particles, and you can also see if there's issues with any of the engine components from the cast block and so forth that are breaking down or anything like that, you'll start to pick that up on that sump plug. The next thing you'll see is that the design and the shape of the sump is a little bit unique. There's reasons around the cooling effect of that, the pockets that are in there, and to get the maximized cooling out of this size sump and the capacity that's in there. But one of the key features we had was trying to make it fit with diff drop kits. Now, we wanted to make sure that the sump is going to be compatible with those kits. When we first started making it, we had some that were 3D printed, and we would find that just with flex in the front, especially when you're forward driving, you're going to be touching on that sump, and long term, it's going to rub a hole in it or you're going to have a problem, and we didn't want to have those issues. So we redesigned it quite a few times to make sure we can maximize the volume of the sump, but also not foul on anything in that area. And that was something that's pretty important because, we needed to have a product that was suitable for the market, that did the job correctly, however, wasn't going to cause other problems with other components that are on the car. And that's how we've ended up with this sump. So I think it's time we'll bolt it onto the car, we'll run some data, get some tests, and then give you guys the results, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks, mate.
See you, mate. All right, so what we've got here is our little temperature sensor that we had on the stock sump, and now we're retrofitting that to our Just Auto sump that we're putting in. This way we can log what the temperature is. We've got it in the same location as what we have the factory on. We wanted to make sure that it's close as possible, just to make sure that the testing is going to be much the same. We'll grab some silicon, run a bead of silicon, small bead of silicon. One thing I see with sumps that have been pulled off on cars over the years, it's really important to only put a small amount. You got to remember that you've got 2 surface areas that are machined flat. You only need a small film of silicon to seal that area up. We have an overfill gap machined into it. This stops the silicon pulling into the inside of the sump and then falling off and getting stuck on the pickup. So it's really crucial doing this is that it's a small amount, and it's the whole less is more approach. So we'll make sure we'll do that now. Now we've replaced the sump, we've got an extra 2 litres of capacity to fill that up with, so now we're going to fill it back up with another fresh lot of 530 oil and redo the test.
All right, so we're back in the car. We just did our idle up to get to the oil temperature, the same temperature as what we had before we start to do the load test. That way, we can see the difference here. We've run this test already. The motor is already saturated, so it's already had a temperature increase overall from the first run that we did. So this test we're going to do now, and then we're going to redo this test in the morning with the exact same conditions as what we had to start with. Giving an extra couple litres of oil, you're already getting a cooling effect by volume. That's something that you're getting for free there. Just by adding more of something, you're going to get better cooling to start with. It takes longer to get that saturation of heat through everything. So that's something to consider.
The next day's test was successful with the ambient temperature the same. After the dyno testing, we've already seen the sump reduce oil temperatures by an average of 2 degrees. However, the real results will come from the road test, where proper airflow under the vehicle at 60 to 100 kilometers an hour will show its full impact.
So we're off the dyno, we've done our dyno testing, and now we have a zone van hooked up to our 300 series, and we're going to do some real world testing there. Zone were really good to us and be able to give us a van to be able to do this test. Now we've got our Just Autos sump on here. We've changed the oil. Every sump that we change over, every we go back to factory, we change the oil with brand new oil in there. We're running a 530 oil as well for our testing. So both sumps will be set up the same oil, and we're trying to get roughly the same temperature of starting point for where we'll start the car off. So we're going to hit the road in a second and start doing our first starter log for the day and get those test results in. Then we'll come back and we'll switch the sump over. And then what we'll do, we'll also wait until the next morning until our temperature's the same again, and then repeat that test and see the results. All right, we just got back from our road test, so we've just changed it out to the stock sump. The stock sump's back in the car now. We've got all the back plates, everything back like stock, like it was with the original test. So we're now going to run that through, get the van back hooked up, and go through that. The big thing here is that that test won't be carried out today. It's going to be carried out tomorrow, because we need to make sure that the car is at the correct temperature of starting point to make sure that the data is going to line properly and what we're seeing is correct and it's not a flawed view. Obviously, if we went out and did this testing correctly now, even though we've already done a test this morning, we're going to end up with a result where this oil may be a fair bit hotter because the saturation of heat through the whole engine and components that are in the car, it's not really giving it a fair comparison of where it is. So we're going to redo this test in the morning, wait until the temperature or the ambient temperature is as close as possible, if not the same as what we had today. Fingers crossed that that's what it is. We'll be watching that as we go through in the morning and working out when we're going to start that test. So obviously, there's a lot of other variables that come into that, but this is the closest we can do as far as real-world testing goes. But look, I'm looking forward to the results. So yeah, let's get this back down and get it hooked up, ready for tomorrow, and we'll hit the road again. So test number 2, we've got a stock sump back on. We're going to hit the road and we're going to do those testing results exactly the same as what we did with JA sump. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what will be. Temperature worked out to be much the same. It's about 24 degrees at the moment, so we'll wait a little bit to get to around that 25 degrees and then we'll hit the road and reproduce that test.
With the testing complete, Matt and his team spent time analysing the data, conducting additional checks, and making a few strategic adjustments. A few days later, here's Matt's summary of the findings.
We've got our test results back and we're analysing the data, and what I have here is a screen recording. At the moment, what I have is a log up for the first test that we ran, and the first test we ran was the increased sump capacity against the stock sump, but with everything factory, like bash plates factory, everything else there, no cooling efficiency added to it, and nothing's changed whatsoever. And what we've seen on the dyno as well as on the road test, this is a log of a 61 kilometer run, and you can see anything that's in color at the moment is the stock sump, and everything that's in white represents what our sump has done essentially. So there's some differences here. As you can see at the starting point, what's really interesting is that it takes longer for the oil to heat up slightly, only by a few degrees, but once it gets to operating temperature now, that is purely down to the fact that we have a larger increase of capacity. We've got an extra nearly 2 liters of oil there, so you'd expect to see that. But what's interesting is, as we're traveling along, as far as capacity goes, yes, there's some areas in that we can see maybe a 1.5 on an average difference in temperature, but again, I don't believe that's down to the cooling of the sump, with even the cooling fins that we've added to the bottom of it in this case, because we're not directing airflow there. The heat's still there. We haven't changed any of that just yet, and that small increment will be because of the capacity of the oil that we've added there. There's not much to really say about that other than the fact that, hey, it's good that we've got extra capacity, but we really need to take one step further. But where it gets interesting, this is getting compared now back to what we've done with some cooling efficiency. And as you can see right away, there's a big separation between these two lines. I just wanted to clarify back exactly what everything represents. And this is oil pressure. This is our engine RPM, just to show you where we are with our load points. And I'm mainly looking at this area that was pretty repeatable, which is just through this section here. But as you can see, with what we've done with our cooling, we've massively dropped the engine cooling as far as the engine oil. What's really interesting about this is that as far as our cooling system goes, our cooling system is still operating at the same temperature, but we've managed to optimize the cooling system, and we've been able to pull down around about 7 degrees on average around the whole range. And now the oil is working in an area window where we want it to be. I guess that's the question for the 300 series. Where do we want the oil to be from a temperature point of view? And if you have a look, we really want an engine to be running between 95 and 110 degrees. We really don't want to be seeing anywhere upwards of that. And what was interesting is that, as you can see through some of these logs, we're exceeding sort of 117 pretty quickly. And that's an increase with the stock sump and everything in place. On the dyno, we're seeing 120, 121 relatively quickly. At that temperature, the oil's starting to break down. And obviously with temperature over a long period of time, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And then eventually the oil is gone. The oil window that we want to be working in is that 95 to 105. I want to be at the lower end of the scale. At the moment, the 300 series are definitely up the upper end of the scale. And this is only once you start to get a 300 series towing a bit of weight. And then you got to keep in mind, testing was done on a day where it's about 25 degrees. So it's not real hot at all. And that temperature is already there. So we're like, okay, we need to optimize it and get it back to that window. So we managed to get it back to a window now around about 100 degrees, which is perfect to where we wanted it. We wanted the oil to be around that. So again, our definitely sign with the increase of cooling, which is what we've done with some experimental coolants that we've been working on. That'll be soon released to the public, and we'll release all the information on that as it comes through. But we've also gone another step with the sump, and we've also directed airflow to the bottom of that with the cooling that we have. From what I've found with the data so far that we're representing is that we're going down the right path, and we're trying to pick up a lot of 0.1s along the way, and eventually all those 0.1s equal a 1, and then you go, wow, that's worth doing, and we haven't really compromised anything along the way as far as fitment goes or any components. So I'm extremely happy with how this has ended up. Now, you can see here, as far as transmission temperature goes, that we have a massive decrease in transmission temperature as well over the whole rev range. And you can see that because this has got no cooler on it, it's running through the stock system at the moment, that basically we're dropping down massive amounts. Now, unfortunately, this number is not realistic. The factor's wrong, so it's out by 10 degrees. But the actual, what we're wanting to see there is a separation between that. So again, it shows us that cooling system is working a lot more effectively by pulling the heat out of the transmission as well as the engine. It's dropping the overall temperature. So that's something that I was extremely happy to see, that it's working on both fronts. So not only is this great for the engine, it's also fantastic for the transmission as well. All of these things together seem to be working really effectively. We will be releasing a video shortly with our coolants that we're making and give you guys an understanding of what we're doing there, as well as our sump release, which is soon to come out. But so far, adding extra capacity to your engine is the thing to do. We did that nitrous video with the engine to show that the engine is strong, and this is part of the reason why we can see people having problems. Even the oil temperature going up to say that 116, 117 degrees within a few minutes of driving out of here with the van on the back is, what we're sort of seeing in the stock form. So if you're traveling over a long period of the time, say 6 to 8 hours in that day in extreme hot conditions, that oil temperature is going up and up and up. So eventually it's degrading so bad that the next morning when you start up, you really have no protection left in there. So changing to a heavier weight oil, adding capacity and improving cooling efficiency is giving us exactly what we want here, and that is making sure that we can have longevity and reliability in this setup. But so far, very happy with the sump, very happy with the cooling efficiency products that we've got at the moment.